Aloha there, this is Darci coming to you from my home office here on Kauai. You might hear the waves right there as I'm right by the ocean. So today I'm talking about the book, Susan Campbell's book, From Triggered to Tranquil. From Triggered to Tranquil. She says how self-compassion and mindful presence can transform relationship conflicts and heal childhood wounds. So I wanted to share some of this experience with you. If you're interested in becoming more conscious, then stick around and listen to the 5 steps in this process. We're actually doing a book study right now, and folks can just hop in on that. And if you're listening to this at a belated time, then you can always pick up this book by Susan Campbell. I'll put the information below. So From Triggered to Tranquil. So there's a lot of great study practice in this book, and what I'll share with you are the 5 different steps that we actually went through today. And but first, what I wanted to do is talk about what is a trigger. What does being triggered mean? When I'll stay on my side of the net, because that's part of the work in getting real, is to share how I'm experiencing things. So when I'm triggered, what happens is I have some type of sensation, usually physical, sometimes mental. Have you ever had a conflict with somebody and then you have this conversation in your mind where you just go over it? That happens to me. So when I get triggered, I sometimes feel agitated. I replay a dialogue, or I have a conversation, an invisible conversation with somebody. Have you done that? I do. And so we're all humans, and we were raised by humans who were raised by humans before us, and we learn emotional habits. Some of you may know I practice Ayurvedic medicine. My name is Darci Frankel, by the way, and Ayurveda talks about how there's a process of digestion with the physical body. You know, we eat food and there's assimilation, digestion, elimination. Well, there's also an emotional digestion process. Did you know that? I have done some other videos on this because it's very important. We need to make sure that we are digesting our emotions. Now, when I have a very familiar emotion that comes up frequently, like fear, anger, if I'm judging someone, there's a lot of ways to know if you're triggered. One way is if you're judging someone. So when I'm judging somebody's actions frequently, I'm triggered. And so what happened is when I was younger, when you were younger, when we were younger, we didn't have this emotional digestion capacity. Our being, our physiology, our capacity to digest emotions and really process the content was not fully formed. We're not really a fully formed adult until the age of 21, 22, perhaps even 23. And some of us get stuck in these emotional patterns. So when we're little, we learn these emotional habits from big people. We think they know better. We, are not able to really be seen, be heard, be felt, and held in our emotional process. So I'll give you an example. Sometimes people are taught that, children are supposed to be seen and not heard. Who has that one? My mother did. And may she rest in peace. And sometimes people are also very uncomfortable with a certain feeling. So they are uncomfortable with their children expressing this emotion. So for instance, let's say somebody's uncomfortable feeling anger. They're going to feel uncomfortable when their child gets angry. And it's part of a developmental stage to experience anger. It's important that we experience anger and start to differentiate ourselves. It's important that we're able to cry and let those tears well up and come out. And then we have fulfilled this emotion. It's important to get agitated about something when we're younger and feel that anger come up and be able to express it and have an adult reflect that back and say something, like, oh, I get it. You're feeling angry about that. Are you feeling angry about that? This way, we get to express these emotions cleanly and clearly, and we don't have to do a lot of therapy. I have a theory that all parents, if they're starting a college fund, they should start a therapy fund for their children because, nobody's perfect. And we all have to learn how to do these things. And inevitably, there's some wounds that are passed down from family member to family member that we learn. So we're going to talk a little bit more about this today, and I'll share with you the 5 steps to process some of these and the self-compassion process that Susan Campbell talks about in her books. Let's see, what else did I want to tell you? By the way, one more commercial. We're doing a book study club. My friend Adrian, who is also a facilitator and has also studied a lot of the radical honesty work and with Susan Campbell for quite some time now, is facilitating this book study practice on this book. But you can just go get the book or do these practices. You don't need to participate in our thing. So number 1, I'll read them and talk a little bit about them. Number 1 is admitting and accepting our insecurities. So in a lot of different aspects, it's really important to do a self-assessment and know where your insecurities are. And so, you want to be able to have tools to do that. So for instance, you want to know what your triggers are, what your unique trigger signature, Susan Campbell talks about, is. And so when you start to feel that, you can do the practice inside. So this work is really about doing the work inside, and a lot of the other work is about a social meditation. Radical honesty is about that. So is the getting real work, where we do the work with a practice partner. However, the more I do this work on myself, the better I am as a partner, and the better I can be, have closer relationships when we can repair and revisit and, clear the air with somebody. So for me, let's say one of my triggers is when I notice I get agitated, my husband may have left the toilet seat up. I love this example because it's such a quintessential female one, isn't it? So let's say he left the toilet seat up and I get agitated. What happens is, remember I said we get up into our heads. So I start telling myself stories. One of my favorite stories is you're not listening to me. You don't care about me. You are, you're not listening, that's something that's important. So I will notice, I'm telling myself that story, or I'm judging that person. Oh, he's just he doesn't care. He's a slob, or he's too flippant, and so that's a good indication to really start to look inside. Oh, what's really going on? And so then at each one of these steps, number 3 is all about pausing and regulating myself. So I get myself upset when I tell myself these stories. He doesn't care, they don't care. And what I can do is take a few breaths and come inside and just pause. So this is step number 3. Pause and take a few breaths feel myself, I was feeling agitated, I'm really thoughty, but what's going on, Darci? So I have an inner dialogue, literally, with myself. What's happening? Or just go drop in with compassion. I know this is, if it's a big thing, give myself compassion, kind of like a mother would. This is hard, and we'll get through this. I know I could get through this. So I give myself some reassuring talk. I feel what I'm feeling. Really be with the sensations in my body. Notice my chest is tight, or maybe I'm, agitated, or my pulse is racing, or I'm hot, or I want to reach out. That's a expression of anger. As I put attention inwardly, the adult part of me is able to digest these old pieces, which were previously undigested. Now, sometimes it takes a lifetime to do these things, but if I just touch in to this place, I can really keep digesting. And the more I do that, the more familiar I become with these practices, with my own emotional body, with my own emotional digestion practice and process, and the more progress that I can make. Sometimes it's hard. This is a pitfall. Sometimes it's a really big emotion. If I'm really triggered, if I'm really angry, and it's all somebody's fault, it's all your fault, big feelings are hard to digest. And that's when we really need to go inside and pause, not process out there, because when we're triggered is not the time to work something out with somebody. I learned this with private sessions with Susan, and also from another book called the 5-Minute Relationship Repair book that she did with John Gray. So, and some other work over the years. Basically, when I'm triggered, what happens, it's like a light switch. And I do not have access to the mammalian brain, to the mammal part of me. The reptilian brain goes off. And what do reptiles want to do to each other? They want to kill each other and eat each other, and And then frequently people talk about fight, flight, freeze, or fawn as when we're triggered. So this is going back. Each one of these steps leads to the other, and they're very, cyclical. So going back to learning your own trigger or signature pattern. When you get angry or triggered, do you want to lash out? Do you freeze? Do you want to fight? Do you want to flight? You want to run away? Do you avoid? Do you freeze? Deer in the headlights. Not know what to say. And your partner gets mad at you for that. So knowing our trigger signatures is really helpful, because we're all in relationships and we all have these wounds, and we all need to reparent part of ourselves because we had traumas in the past. And to some degree, we're all reacting to these different traumas. We're all on automatic. When you get triggered, when I get triggered, I'm on automatic. I don't have all my resources. I don't have access to my full creative potential, because remember, that light switch went off, and I'm in, my reptilian brain is completely activated at that point. I can't be compassionate because all I want to do is fight, run away, freeze. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. Or fawn, or like help that person, or So those are the signals that we are triggered if we're in one of those. So sometimes when we're trying to learn our own unique trigger signature, we might feel one of two things: resistance or shame. Have you ever felt resistance? Oh, it's them, it's not me, or I don't even want to look at this. I don't want to talk about emotions. Or shame. One of my great teachers says that shame accepted is our greatest treasure. And so my interpretation of that is when I'm ashamed, when I'm embarrassed, when I'm not accepting a part of myself, I can't, I'm not whole. And so the more I put light on these parts that I feel ashamed, the more I'm accepting parts of us. Remember, shame accepted is our greatest treasure. And you, me, we might not have accepted all these parts of ourselves because sometimes they're hard to look at. You know, I was going to take a trip recently. I was packed, ready to go, and there was a lot of things to navigate. I have a business, if you know me. I have a day spa here on Kauai. So employees and schedules and just a lot of, and the conference and a lot of things to navigate. And I got stressed out and I wasn't feeling good. And my kids have this thing, everybody have this stomach flu. Well, I started not feeling good. I didn't know what to do. Do I cancel? I have this flight, I have a conference, I have a hotel, all of these things. And so I was sitting with all of these parts and I realized I'm ashamed. I'm so embarrassed that I wasn't feeling good. It was hard for me because I'm a health practitioner. I should feel good. See, the shoulds. I should feel good. I should know what to do. I do all the right things. And so it was really hard for me to accept this part. I was judging myself. I was triggered. I was really triggered. And I had to stop and pause. Put my hand on my heart. It's okay, Darci. We'll figure this out. You'll know what to do. It's okay. This will pass. And so I ended up not taking the trip. Had mad FOMO. But really accepted, these parts of me that I was judging, and these, this aspect where I got really triggered and really ashamed and a little angry, if I'm honest. And now I feel sad. So, and now I don't. So wherever you are with your emotional digestion, it's really important to pay attention to our inner world, because we need to digest emotionally just as much as we need to digest physically. As a woman, right before I have my menstrual cycle, if I am backed up emotionally, I will frequently have a beautiful flood of emotion right before my period. My mom used to say, "Oh, are you getting your period?" I say, "Yeah, yeah, I understand." And, I would just have a little cry and then it's done. Sometimes I don't even know what it's about. And that's okay. What I'm sharing is the importance of accepting that emotional digestion is very similar to physical digestion. Remember I talked about anger comes up and we might reach out and we need to express, tears come up, or I feel tickled and I let it out, right? Or I feel sad. But what happens if I feel sad and I don't let myself feel that. Or if I feel anger and that's interrupted because of some way or habit. In the same way, Ayurveda talks about our physical digestion. And so what happens if I have to burp and I don't? It gets backed up, right? Or if I have to pass gas, I said that, and I don't, it gets backed up. The emotional digestion process is the same. So let's take a look back at the list and see where I'm at. So I talked a little bit about number 1, admitting and accepting our insecurities, learning our own unique trigger signature. Do you feel shame? Do you get angry? What's your most common emotion? Oh, I'll share this too. Today, Adrian had us talk about rating ourselves on a scale of 1 to 5. So for instance, how confident are you in admitting and accepting your own insecurities? Are you this much confident, number 1, or are you number 5? Also, how much do you practice that? On a scale from 1 to 5. Scale from 1 to 5. How much do you admit and accept your insecurities? We have to accept it before we, admit it, right? So how would you rate yourself? And then number 2, learning our own unique trigger signature. How do you think you understand these skills about how to know when you're triggered? What's your trigger signature? We should ask that when we're just getting to know somebody, What's your sign? Let's take it a level deeper. What's your triggers? I'm inevitably going to trigger you if we're in a relationship. You're going to get triggered, I should say. It's not if, it's when. And what do we do about that? That's why I'm so keen to do these processes and share them with people in my inner circle. So number 3, how confident are you in knowing how to pause and to self-regulate? Or if you're doing the work with a partner, to co-regulate. I'm pretty confident I know a lot of skills, so I'm 5 with that. How often do I pause to regulate myself? I'd rate myself at a 3 to 4. If I'm being honest, we're being honest here, right? Number 4, how do you be with sensations and emotions? 1 to, how confident are you in how to do that? I'm a 5, confident. How much do I practice it? I would give myself 4 to 5, 3 to 4. And then number 5 is talking about repairing and clearing the air. I did a video previously, and I'll probably list it on repairing, and repairing and clearing the air. Here's some examples of how to do that. So one of the great things in human beings is that we can do something over. The redo, right? So we want to have redos. It's so healing to just simply say, gosh, I feel crummy about how that came out or that interaction. Can we have a redo, or can we talk about that? Can we clear the air, please? I'm not feeling that great about that interaction we had, so-and-so. It's a really great part of maintaining our relationships and keeping them lively. We want to do that, right? Don't you want people to maintain and sustain the relationship? Well, these are great skills to do that. So what are your skills in repairing? How confident are you? I'm pretty confident that I have the skills. I don't always do it. And the reason I don't always do that is because it's scary. It's very scary. You don't know. Is that person, let's say you did something and they're mad at you, what is that person going to say if you come in? So sometimes I feel scared about that. But I'm also super courageous, emotionally courageous. So I will step in and say sometimes. But it's hard in work situations, with employees. So that's why I don't always practice this with a lot of people, but I have people in my inner circle. We repair, we clear the air, and it is such a great practice to instill. I highly recommend it. All right, so that wraps up my little talk for the day. Check out this book because it's awesome sauce. Let me see, I wanted to say From Trigger to Tranquil, Susan Campbell. We love you, Susan. Thank you for doing this work and the 27 books that you have written and all the hours that you've spent helping people. I'm in absolute awe of you, Susan. So let's see. Is that everything? The 5 steps. Thank you for your time. If you tell me how you did, if you want, in the comments, you don't have to. But also, in addition, this is works with number 5 in the Serious Cleanse. If you've done my Serious Cleanse programs and you're interested in the 7 categories of toxins, this is category number 5, emotional toxins. It's a thing. How to heal and prevent and eliminate and know that we have emotional toxins. All right, brave communication and warriors, let me know if you have any questions, comments. Be kind and be cooperative, and see you next time. Aloha.